The desert stretched endlessly under the pale red sky, a horizon broken only by jagged rocks and the faint glimmer of distant lights. Earth's first colony on Eris. 7 had been established only a decade earlier, and life here was still harsh, survival still uncertain. Among the scattered miners and settlers, few dared to venture beyond the safety of the domed outposts, the wilderness of Eris. 7 was unforgiving, filled with unknown creatures and mysteries buried beneath its shifting sands. Ethan Voss was not the kind of man who sought company. A former soldier turned drifter, he had taken to the outer settlements for work that demanded strength more than words. Tall, weathered, and quiet, he had long since stopped seeking meaning in life. For him, the days blended into one another, loading cargo, repairing machinery, and staring at the alien horizon until the suns dipped below the dunes. But one evening, as he made his way back from the mines, something unusual caught his attention. At first, he thought it was nothing more than the wind shifting across the sand. Then he heard it, soft cries, faint but urgent. Ethan stopped in his tracks. The sound didn't belong to any creature he knew. He followed it, his boots sinking into the dust until he reached a cluster of rocks where shadows stretched long in the fading light. There, huddled together, were 3 small figures. At first, Ethan thought they were human children, lost and alone. But as he drew closer, he saw the truth. Their skin shimmered faintly, shades of violet and blue catching the last rays of sun. Their eyes were larger than humans, glowing faintly in the dim light. They were young, no older than 10 by appearance, though their alien features made it hard to be sure. Each of them looked fragile, terrified, and desperate. One of them stepped forward, her voice trembling but clear. "Please help us." Ethan froze. Contact between humans and the native species of Eris. 7 was still rare and often tense. The colonists spoke of the locals as mysterious, sometimes hostile, their ways unknown. And yet here were these children, pleading with him like lost lambs. He could have turned away. He could have convinced himself that their troubles weren't his concern. But the raw fear in their eyes struck something inside him he thought long dead. "What happened to you?" he asked, his voice rough from disuse. The eldest of the girls pointed back toward the horizon, where the desert dipped into shadow. "They took our sisters. Hunters from the skies." Her words came haltingly, but the meaning was clear. Ethan followed her gaze and saw it. A trail of smoke in the distance, the faint hum of engines disappearing over the ridge. Raiders. He knew the type. Smugglers and slavers who roamed the outer worlds, preying on the vulnerable. His stomach tightened. These weren't just frightened children. They were survivors of an attack, left behind while others had been stolen. "Why me?" Ethan muttered, more to himself than to them. But when he looked at their faces again, he knew the answer. There was no one else. Against every instinct screaming at him to walk away, Ethan crouched low. "Stay close to me. Don't make a sound." The girls obeyed without question, their trust immediate and absolute. Together, they moved across the desert, following the trail of smoke and engines until night fell. The sky above lit with twin moons, casting silver light on the sands. Ethan kept his rifle ready, his senses sharp, every muscle tensed. He had been a soldier once, but he had not expected to live that life again. Yet here he was, leading a rescue he never asked for. Hours later, they reached the raiders' camp. Fires burned in crude barrels. Ships rested on the sand with their engines cooling. Ethan spotted the cages, metal bars glinting under the moonlight. Inside were 6 alien children, their wide eyes staring hopelessly into the night. The raiders laughed nearby, unaware of what was coming. Ethan's mind raced. He had no backup, no plan, and 3 frightened girls clinging to his shadow. But he had one advantage: surprise. Moving silently, he circled the camp until he reached the edge of the cages. One of the raiders rose to check the locks, and Ethan struck like lightning. His rifle cracked, the guard collapsing before he could even cry out. Panic erupted in the camp. Shouts, footsteps, and gunfire filled the night. The alien girls shrank behind the rocks, covering their ears. Ethan moved like a storm, firing with precision, using the chaos to his advantage. One by one, the raiders fell. Years of training surged back into him. Every motion sharp, every shot counted. But even as he fought, his mind burned with urgency. He wasn't fighting for himself. He was fighting for the children. When the last raider fell, silence swept over the desert once more. Ethan staggered, his chest heaving, sweat running down his face. He hurried to the cages, smashing the locks with the butt of his rifle. The imprisoned children rushed out, their cries of relief piercing the night. The 3 girls who had begged him for help reunited with their sisters, clutching them in tearful embraces. Ethan watched, his rifle still in hand, his body aching. For the first time in years, he felt something stir inside him. Not pride, not even relief, but a sense of purpose. He had given these children back their freedom. The eldest girl approached him, her eyes glowing softly in the moonlight. She placed her small hand on his arm. "We thought no one would help us, but you came." Ethan swallowed hard. "I just did what needed to be done." But the girl shook her head. "No, you did more. You didn't just save us. You showed us that humans are not all cruel." Her words carried weight far beyond her years, a truth that cut through the barriers of species and culture. As the children gathered, Ethan knew he couldn't leave them here. The desert was no place for the young, and the raiders might return. He guided them toward the colony, where safety, however fragile, waited. As they walked, the children clung to him, their trust unwavering. Back at the settlement, whispers spread quickly. A lone human had fought off raiders to save alien children. Some settlers looked at Ethan with suspicion, others with awe, but he ignored them all. His focus remained on the girls, ensuring they were safe, fed, and sheltered. In the days that followed, Ethan found himself changed. The children refused to leave his side, and slowly, their presence softened the hardened shell around his heart. He had spent years drifting, avoiding connections, but now he had stumbled into a bond he could not deny. And the twist came quietly, one morning as the suns rose. The eldest girl approached him with a pendant she wore around her neck. She pressed it into his hand, her eyes solemn. "You don't know who we are, do you?" Ethan frowned, confused. "We are not just children," she said softly. "We are daughters of the matriarch of Eris. 7, our people's future." The weight of her words struck him. He had not just saved children. He had saved heirs to an entire civilization. What he thought was a simple act of compassion had shifted the balance between species. His name would not fade into obscurity. His actions had already carved a place in history. For Ethan, it was never about glory. It was about a moment in the desert when frightened voices begged him for help, and he chose not to turn away. But for the galaxy, it was the beginning of a new story, one where a broken human drifter became the savior of alien royalty. And as he watched the little girl smile at him with gratitude that transcended words, Ethan knew one thing with certainty. His life would never be the same again.